Bitcoin's pumping. Altcoins, have we seen the bottom? It looks like things are getting spicy. I'm getting this retweeted right now. What Bitcoin levels should we be watching? What altcoins are going to pump next? What targets are we looking at? What has happened? We got Kevin Svensson and Matthew Hyland coming on here in just a moment, but let's go ahead and get this retweeted out. Share it with the friends and family. Let's make sure that we are paying attention to what's going on in the space, because hold on, I'm trying to get this retweeted so we can go live immediately. Here we go, retweeted. Let's get into it. The markets are pumping. We're seeing some green. We're seeing wonderfulness in the charts. Does it mean that we have the Bitcoin and crypto explosion coming directly to the markets for the next? Are we there? Well, we got to pay attention to everything going on, because we are seeing green across the board right now. But what does it mean for the price action? What does it mean for the levels? What target should we be looking at? Is Bitcoin going straight to 150 from here? Well, we're going to be breaking that down in today's show. We have Matthew Hyland, Kevin Svensson, and of course the charts, the signals, all this and more. So everybody, make sure you're hitting that like button, subscribe button, and dinging that bell, because we are seeing beautiful structure right now in the charts. What are you guys feeling? Are you feeling bullish? Are you feeling bearish? Do you feel like this could be a trap? We're going to be breaking these signals down today, because it's not just Bitcoin. We're seeing XRP breaking out. We're seeing Solana starting to see some beautiful bullish candles. We're seeing Link right on the edge of just absolute bullishness, or is it going to get rejected again? Let's dive into it, everybody. Get active in the live chat. I want to see you getting active here, whether you're on X or on YouTube. Make sure, if you are here, it means you're alive. So get active in the live chat again and retweet this out to your friends, to your compadres, to your family. Scroll down to, where is it at? Right here. Let me refresh the page. Coming right here. Make sure you're hitting that retweet right here. Hit that like button. Get this out to your friends and family. Let's get the people in here. Again, we got Kevin Svensson and Matthew Hyland coming on here in just a few minutes, but let's talk about it. I want to run through a couple things before they come in. Everybody right here was thinking only a few days ago the market was over. And I was talking to you all about this. I was saying it's looking like we have to prepare in case there's downside action. However, it also is looking like the dominant trend is to the upside. Unfortunately, people sell here. And up here, they're like, God darn it. And so this is what we're seeing yet again, time and time again. Now, what was that immediate catalyst that made the market just have that explosion to the upside? Well, President Trump is no longer expected to impose sector-specific tariffs on April 2nd. That just gave that jolt of positivity across broader markets as well. It gave that, I don't want to say risk on signal, but it softened that risk off kind of fear mongering that was happening within the charts. In addition to that, we also see catalyst. Is there a catalyst? Who's been stacking and or hodling? I asked you all because the White House also identified that they may sell some of its gold reserve to buy Bitcoin. So these things were stacking up over the weekend. And then in addition to that, we see Howard Lutnick actually identifying kind of what the plan could be. You know, cutting $1 trillion, which is what they're doing actively on Doge, trying to figure out where they can cut wasteful spending, fraudulent spending, or what's the word I'm looking for? Transparent spending, getting things back in line for the budget. Also that, sell hundreds of billions in gold, buy 300 billion in Bitcoin, force Bitcoin price up 10x. Is this what is on the horizon? I know I'm excited about this. I hope you all are too, because this is starting to become not only tangible, but not just talk by politicians. We're seeing active movement on all these things that we are excited about. And then you saw Michael Saylor bought again this morning, $584 million worth of Bitcoin. It just keeps getting better and better. And then right here, the IMF also recognizing Bitcoin as de facto digital gold. I think this is a little bit of a stretch for the way Max Kaiser highlighted it, but it is true. They basically changed some of the wording in there about Bitcoin being an international trade monetary asset, store of value, but also something that could be used in international trade. So that is a bit of a shift from where they have been as of late, up until now, I should say. But then we get to this. This is what's most exciting to me. One of the largest crypto VC firms just published a report on institutional adoption. Excuse me. I was shocked, says Austin King. Make sure you go in and follow Austin King. It's at 0xASK. Great information there. Also a builder within the space. He said, I was shocked to see how much progress is happening that we aren't seeing. He did he basically went through the 47-page report. This is what he saw. More than 2/3 of TradFi firms are already exploring how to use crypto. 80, was that? More than 2/3 of this. This is great because most of these things are not being reflected on balance sheets, on quarterly earnings reports, all this, but we're seeing the activity about what they're going to do to get situated and integrated within this space. Beyond that, we also see they believe the future is public blockchains, not private ones. Amazing. The future is blockchain. It's the rails of this technological revolution that we're in the middle of right now. Almost all firms believe DeFi will eventually consume TradFi. Do you understand what's happening? This is from a report. Going out and investigating and polling and discussing with different venture capital firms, with institutions, with corporations, almost all firms believe DeFi will eventually consume TradFi. Are you not bullish enough? Come on, everybody. Let's go. What else we got? Many who are leaders in TradFi today are starting their careers when internet technologies completely restructured the finance industry. It's not crazy proposition to them that another technology will do this again. This is what we're in the middle of. People are starting to really wake up to this. Number 4, it all comes down to costs. Traditional finance is so competitive that margins are extremely thin. Leaders in TradFi see blockchain as opportunity to lower costs, not only more efficient, but more cost effective as well. So guys, all the crumbs that we need to make the best cookie, all the ingredients that we need to see this technological revolution really take off, the stage is getting set right now. Regulatory clarity remains the biggest blocker, but we have a new administration, a new sheriff in town, and a new outlook on what the intention's going to be with this space. And then what else do we see? Surprised by these findings? Share this thread with friends. And I definitely, I'll share this out to my friends right now, because when you like something that you see online, you should share it out to your friends. Great thread from OXASK. There we go. About to be replaced by DeFi. You are not bullish enough. Boom, there we go. Let's get that posted out. And then a couple more things I wanted to go through real quick, some data points in terms of price action. We got Matthew Highland waiting in the wings. I'm going to bring him on here in just a moment. But remember, why would they remember all the pushback against Bitcoin, blockchain, crypto? It's illicit. What we're seeing is we haven't audited the gold reserves in 51 years, whereas Bitcoin is audited every 10 minutes. That's right, it is audited. The entire Bitcoin network is audited every 10 minutes. That's what basically mining is. It's everybody agreeing on every transaction that's ever happened, especially in this last block, right? And then once they all agree, then they compete to basically secure that transaction. Whoever wins the math contest, to put it very simply, to crack that the cryptographic problem, they get the mining reward. And those mining rewards get cut in half every 4 years, about every 210,000 blocks, which is about every 4 years. Therefore, the Bitcoin network is audited for every transaction every 10 minutes. And people are calling, or they were calling, Bitcoin and internet money, it's a scam. You know what's a scam? The US dollar. This is what I'm all about, and this is why we are here. Now, take this one step further. What do we got? Let's look at the last 2 cycles overlaid with where we're at now. The last cycle is orange, the 2017 cycle is a yellow, and we are now deviating a little bit below. It's not the end of the world. Look, we deviated below the last cycle here, but it was right in the middle. And then we deviated above both cycles back here. I think this is about March. This is the top in March 2024. Came back into basically the mean. Now we're deviating below. Great, but you know where the pressure is? To the upside. And then what else do we see? Massive stablecoin printing. Whales are on the move. Nearly 700 million worth of USDC shuffled between unknown wallets in the last 20 minutes. This was this morning at about 9:15 a.m. Then what else do we see? Global liquidity. This is the liquidity weighted business cycle, 2 overlaid. And what do we see right on this breakout? This was a true parabola. Boom. right on this breakout, this is where the real fireworks happened. We are right at the cusp. Again, it doesn't mean it's 100% going to happen in the next 2 days, 3 days, or even 3 months. But we are in the setup of our lifetimes with the proper authorities at B in terms of regulatory bodies that could really slow down the progress. They're finally behind this with empowering verbiage, with empowering regulation and changes and how they are interacting with this space. We are not bullish enough. So with that being said, what else we got? A little bit of cautionary tale right now. This currently is a leverage driven pump. What does that mean? It's not spot buying, meaning people going into an exchange and saying, I have $100, give me $100 worth of Bitcoin. This is people with leverage trading $100 on 10x, 20x, 30x, $1,000 on 10x, 20x, so on and so forth. A lot of leverage here, which does pose the question, are we going to get another flush out before the move to the upside? What that would look like, and we're going to get Matthew Hyland to give his perspective here in a second, is when we're looking at these charts. This is very bullish. We're back into this falling wedge. We're coming right in. Look at this, right? We've kind of broken out a little bit, but I would be watching very specifically, especially with the Bitcoin CME futures. We do have a gap that's down here now, roughly about 84.4 up to about 85.2, which is perfectly in line with all this liquidity that is now below us. So there may be a little bit of a bear trap to the downside to really make people go, oh, I knew this was fake, only to clear this out to then resolve back to the upside. But we got our boy in the wings, so let me bring him on. You're guest 1 and guest 4 for your screen and your charts. You are not Crypto Crow. Got to turn that off. It's my boy, Matthew Hyland,
I was about
sitting
to
on the
say, who's
bottom
that?
of
That's
his
crazy.
screen. How you doing, baby?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Dude, I'm excited to see
Yeah,
some
man.
green on these charts. Let's look at what you're looking at, because I know you got a short window here to drop the
No,
alpha.
actually, my gym, I guess they have to fix the water there or something, they said. So they're closed for like another hour or something. So I have a little bit more free time. So yeah, I could probably stay a little bit longer. Just happened to work out today.
Let me 1 second. I gotta find too many screens here. There we go. Now let me get my face on. I don't know where my face is. Two cams. I gotta turn on the. You can go ahead. Start giving us your breakdown, brother. There we go.
All right. Actually, I'll start with this. This was my tweet from last night. I posted it. Bitcoin had confirmed this weekly hidden bullish divergence. And this was the first hidden bullish divergence for the first time since September. So we haven't had any sort of weekly bullish divergence in a very long time. And the last time we had that weekly bullish divergence, Bitcoin was around the price of approximately, I think, 55K, and the result after was a move all the way up to 110K, approximately, right? So the last time we had weekly bullish divergence, it uh it definitely like led to a much larger move. So we're now having that confirmed here again, and I'm gonna show this to show this to everyone. So the last time we had weekly bullish divergence was back here. This weekly RSI made a lower low while the price made a higher low. You look at this, and you zoom in, right? Back here, this spike down here, this was in September. Actually, yeah, in September. So it went below this September 2023 low, the RSI did. So that gave it bullish divergence once when it found the bounce here. It confirmed it right here. Bitcoin was 61, I'd say, or 62,000 approximately around that range when it closed and confirmed it. And then it ended up leading to this massive run from 60,000 up to 110,000. And once again, we're seeing the same thing. If you zoom in enough, this weekly RSI went below the low from back in September. If you look, this is lower, ever so slightly. It's definitely close, right? But it's a lower low on the weekly RSI. You can clearly see it there. So this is another bullish divergence on the weekly time frame, and we had this nice green weekly candle back to back, and we're looking at another one currently. So we have weekly bullish divergence playing out. It's pushing higher. And now we have this resistance area up here. This is around approximately 89K to 92K. That's the main area to watch now. Pretty much you could put all your analysis and everything aside right now. All eyes have to be on this area. If it closes a weekly above this area, then it's probably going to push to the all-time highs once again. If it gets rejected here, it has a decent chance of coming back down to these lows and retesting it. And I'll show you something here, like inversely. Back here, we had bearish divergence. Let me try to remove some of these drawings, actually. So back here in December, we had bearish divergence, and this bearish divergence didn't lead to a breakdown initially. If you look here, we confirmed this bearish divergence right here. Bitcoin ended up coming down to approximately 89K, but then from there it bounced to new all-time highs. It went back up and made new all-time highs. So we had bearish divergence here, but it didn't break the support. So inversely, this bullish divergence could potentially not break this resistance now. That would be like the um, opposite scenario, inverse scenario of what we have currently. So while we do have this bullish divergence, the resistance is more important. Breaking through this resistance area is more important. So we just have to sit back and watch at this point. There's nothing. There's nothing you can really do here. I mean, if you look at like the smaller time frames, like the daily and stuff on the R side, there's not much going on. There's no. This is breaking higher, so no real bearish divergence here. 4 hour time frame pushing higher. Maybe it makes bearish divergence. I do like the idea, like what you said before, of maybe getting a pullback here. A lot of people are definitely getting excited, and then pulling back here. We have like this RSI is higher than way where it was way back here and stuff. So getting some sort of pullback and then breaking forward or breaking out kind of would make sense. But the smaller time frame stuff, I don't try to predict because it is pretty hard to predict some type of move like that. But either way, if you look here, this is making a higher high above where it was last week. So this is good structure, right? We're seeing higher highs, higher lows. A lot of people back here, this was after the FOMC meeting. A lot of people, once when it sold off, a lot of people were saying, oh, it was, sell the news or, the QT stuff ending didn't work. But now we're seeing stuff go higher. What is interesting is that the price actually came back. Let me see if I can like zoom in here. It nearly came back to when the announcement was. It was Wednesday around approximately 1 o'clock. So if I mark that out right here, it was on this candle, 1 o'clock Central, so 2 o'clock Eastern. It was like right here. So Bitcoin, once when the
Well, you got
QT
to you got to
came,
be careful though, because that time is UTC, so it wouldn't be 1 or 2 on there.
what's the current time right now? 13.
One, yeah, it's one. It's
Thir-
120.
So okay, so it's 13. Here it's 13, so it's basically the same time as it would have been like currently, like last Wednesday. So let's see. 13 would be, let's see, where was 13? Wednesday. Oh yeah, maybe it was higher actually. You might be right. It would have been here then.
Yeah, that looks
Was
like
it?
the shakeout going into it. Perfect.
Okay, so it actually did retrace that. Interesting. Okay, so it did retrace actually, the move or the initial move up, but we're seeing it continue upward now after. So making a higher high regardless. So Bitcoin, I would say it looks good, right? And I think the quantitative tightening thing changed a lot of stuff. Um, they're decreasing it by 80%. And we had discussed this probably like a week or so ago, probably 2 weeks ago. If you look at the CPI, which I'll load up here, let me look at Trueflation first. I'm going to share the tab in a second. We were looking at this, remember, uh, probably 2 weeks ago, and CPI, or not CPI, inflation is crashing. Inflation is going down. It is seeing like a bounce here. It's currently at 1.78%. But if you compare this to the CPI, which I'll load up here, let me see, CPI chart. Oops, just give me a second. This should be it. Nope, this isn't it. If you look at if you compare it to the CPI chart, it's been very similar, right? So I'm going to share this. We went through this like 2 weeks ago. If you look at this chart, the high from back in January, or no, let me zoom in a little bit. Can you zoom in on this? Yeah, you can. Okay. Where were we back in January? So the high for January was approximately 3.1%. If you look at Trueflation, you go back to January, it was around what was this? 3%. I think I'm like echoing right now. I think maybe from Kevin's.
No, you sound fine. Are you still there? Did he just drop off?
Did he just click something?
I don't know. He kind of froze up, but yeah. What are you looking at, man? It's good to see you, Kev.
What's up, guys?
We missed you the last couple of weeks, brother.
I know, you know how it is. Things pop up, but we're back, and also the market seems like it's back. So there we go.
That's right.
Matt,
Everybody,
how long was I
the
gone
boys,
for?
The boys are back in town, everybody. Make sure every one of you, let's get this out to people. Every one of you that's tuned in, make sure you're over there. Where's it at? Make sure you're over there hitting that retweet, hitting that like button. Get it out to the friends and the family. We got the OGs in the space right now, breaking down what they're looking at. So we're still in that parabola. Let's see what you're seeing, Kev.
Wait, did Matt drop out again?
It's all good.
No, what's up, guys? So thanks for having me on, Kelly. Always appreciate it. The market right now, obviously today we've seen interesting price action in the short term. We had the price make a higher high on the chart. It doesn't really look all too significant because if you're looking at it in the context, it kind of still just looks like another lower high. But the interesting thing is, this is the first higher high we've had in a while. And if you look at the daily RSI, it does validate that, because we haven't had a higher high on the daily RSI this entire time. We had, flat horizontal resistance, now higher high on the daily with a higher high on price. So that's pretty good, right? The behavior's changing and the RSI is confirming that. But what I do want to see is Bitcoin breaking above the downward sloping resistance, right? We just rejected, 8,869. I would really like to see it punch up above here, maybe go into the low 90s, and then flip that previous trend line into new support. This is the scenario. Can you guys see that?
Yeah,
wait,
absolutely.
You can't see the drawing though. I got to use this tool. Go into the low 90s and then flip that trend line into new support. This is the scenario that I'm looking for right now that I think is likely. Another big signal that we're close to getting, just looking at all this stuff, the more surface level indicators. Wait, why is this? I gotta expand
Kevin, he
this.
said you're a nerd. This guy said you're a nerd.
He's correct.
Yeah, it's a compliment. It's a
He's
compliment.
correct.
I like it.
I tell people I'm a nerd. So if you're looking at the weekly RSI, this is one of the more reliable signals we get in the market when the weekly RSI breaks out. We almost had one before the dump, about a month ago, but we didn't quite get it. We ended up, there was the whole Trump tariff news, market dumps, stock market dumps. But now we're sitting back at the weekly RSI downtrend line. We're right there once again. And just go back in history for all the people that are, I guess, skeptical right now. I mean, I don't blame you at all for being skeptical. It's kind of hard not to be. But the weekly RSI signals are extremely reliable, and they usually have big results, right? Over here, 2021, when we had this downtrend line, we broke out 17 weeks up. I mean, that was a big move, right? Bitcoin goes from below 30 to 69,000. Over here, 2023, we had another weekly RSI breakout January 2023, 14 weeks up. The price goes from, like 17K up to 30K. You just keep going down the line. Whenever you get this breakout, this was a huge move, right? 90% or so. And once again, this one was like 100% move up for Bitcoin. And so I just kind of have this drawing on the chart. Like, I don't know if it's actually going to play out this way or look like this at all, but it's just sort of going based on what we usually see on a weekly RSI breakout and what the setup is right now. And I just have it set to, 17 weeks, which at this point, if we get the weekly RSI breakout, would take us into about June or July for this run to play out. And it could send us to the weekly RSI downtrend line, similar to like 2021. When we broke the short-term weekly RSI downtrend, we punch up, the price goes up to a new all-time high, but gets a lower high on the RSI. And the same thing is the similar type of setup I see right now, right? Because a lot of people seem to not notice that the RSI peaked in 2021 at 42,000. That's where the RSI hit its top at 42. Then it went to 65 with a lower high on the RSI. And so right now it's like a similar setup where the price could go to a new high, not being too specific about where this is drawn to, but we could go to a new high and get a lower high on the RSI, very similar to 2021, right? So, I mean, if basically this is the analysis for if the cycle was going to continue sort of as expected or as it would normally do, this is what I'm looking at now from a long-term perspective. And yes, we are coming right up on that weekly RSI breakout signal. So hopefully we get it now. We hit that horizontal weekly RSI support. That was very key right there. That was the place that we found all of our major lows at, right there.
There was weekly bullish divergence too for the first time since September.
Yeah, and also one thing I noticed, right, if you're looking at like that flat, maybe you can pull it up on another chart.
If you
real
zoom
quick.
in though, it actually made a lower low, the weekly RSI below the September one. You just have to like zoom in enough. And it did actually the same thing back in September. It had gone below the prior low from September from the year before.
Well, I was just going to point this out right here. So that flat support, right, on a parabolic trend. This is very similar to 2017 when we had that type of an exponential trend. And look at this. We had
Holy moly.
this flat RSI weekly support that all of our lows came in right there. And you go over to what we're doing right now, and it's like a very similar style setup.
I feel like you can watch that weekly RSI. So like let's say the weekly RSI, if it makes a higher high above the December January high, then I think we might end up forming a much larger move. But let's say it makes another bearish divergence, it makes a lower high. If we get like the next move up, then because if you go back to 2017, there was some bearish divergences that were made, but then there was times where it made a higher high and then invalidated it and then continued the parabola even higher, and continued the uptrend. Especially
you're talking about
near
the higher highs?
Yeah, there was some bearish divergences that were made on those weekly RSIs, but then if you look at the end, like I think that was probably like the last few months of that bull run, it kept on making higher highs. So if the weekly RSI makes higher highs above the January or December ones, then it could gain more legs. But if it makes another bearish divergence, let's say it makes a third bearish divergence, then I would think like that would probably be more closer to like the last move. So we'll have to like watch that when the time comes. But if it makes a higher high, then there's no bearish divergence. So it would allow it to then potentially make another, come back down, but then make another move up and then make a bearish divergence. That would give it like two more legs rather than just one.
Yeah,
That's what happened in 2017. Basically, it just kept making it kept invalidating the bearish divergences and whatnot.
Yeah, when a trend is strong enough, that can. That's very common. But the target right now, if we were to bounce here, right, if we did just find a low, which is I think likely because fear was at its highest level, like of the entire cycle. We hit a 10 on the fear and greed index. Like the sentiment was worse than FTX, honestly. Like, that's at least my observation. And so if we do actually find a low here, the weekly RSI target could be right around that downward sloping resistance, right? And then you would actually end up getting bearish divergence if we were I don't want to draw a straight line up. If we were to trickle up in the market, get a slightly higher high with a lower high on the RSI, we'll see. That's just the bullish case right now, at least. And we can also talk about bearish scenarios if you want, but I'll let Kelly interject for a moment.
No, I mean, I feel like looking at the markets and everything going on, I was kind of talking about the potential, bottoming that we saw. I can pull up my screen. The bottoming that we saw in this zone. There's a lot going on here when the price, we have this sort of channel, from these, if I go to the 3-day chart, beautiful channel here from this top to these bottoms, to these bottoms, to this top right here. And I basically did a 50% line here also with perfectly this top, these bottoms, this top, right kind of, this kind of chopped right between, but it was gave a perfect sort of zone. And then you look at these tops too, boom, projected out. It's a beautiful channel that this rejected at, came right back to the median line here, bounced beautifully, cleared out that CME futures gap that we had right in here between $77,000 and $80,000. All the while also showing some other signs here with, the momentum had switched back over. If we look at, for instance, the BitLab trading stack, our indicators here, a lot of reversal signals just flashing here, just showing like strength was coming in. We broke through the 50-day moving average as well. I'm still looking, as bullish as I am looking for the chumps out there. And that's none of you that are watching. I'm watching for the chumps out here. If this does reject, which is okay, and it's likely to come back and basically find some support down here in the mid 85s, maybe even down here to the 84.2, 84.5. This would still be within this channel. And we have this huge amount of liquidity that's now basically stacked up below us. If I refresh this, it's probably changed just a touch. Yeah, most of the liquidity is below us right now, and that would just be normal for price action to come back in the zone. Maybe give us another buying opportunity here. I would still have a stop limit buy order somewhere down here in the low 80s, potentially down here in the 78s. But I'm looking at this as less likely so long as Trump doesn't flip-flop on, tariff stuff between now and April 2nd, because that's what's been driving a bit of that sort of uncertainty and the sort of sell-off mechanism that we've seen in the markets.
Well,
but it's feeling like it's actually, as you mentioned, that fear and greed. It was so fearful here. It just led me to believe that this was likely that zone. And we're seeing it on the other coins too. The other chart showing some signs of life, but we haven't really broken back up above that 260 billion that we're really looking for to really start seeing real bullishness come into the altcoin market. But we have had the price action on the total three here, minus USDC, minus USDT. We are breaking back into this sort of zone that is marked where most of the price action for alts has been. So if we do sell off broadly on the market, I'd be watching for this to find support here about the 609 billion mark before coming back up. But I'm feeling good. I know Matthew.
What's the level on that what was the tensor chart? What was the level that you just showed?
What, on the total three?
No, the one that showed where the liquidity sitting.
Oh, this is here. Binance, that comes all the way down. The meat of it's right here, about 85.5, 85.4, which is just above where that small CME futures gap was. That would basically, if we flush down to roughly about here, we would clear that CME futures gap, which would clear all of this liquidity that's sitting below us.
Yeah, that wouldn't be like a surprise to see some sort of pullback. It wouldn't like damage it by any means either if it did happen.
Well, I mean, the thing that leads me to believe that's going to happen is the fact that we have such a huge peak here on this, this potentially leverage-driven pump, which would kind of flush out some of that leverage, come down, and then you start seeing real buyers come in on spot to go. But Matthew, I know your chart got cut off. If you'd like to throw your charts back up, if there's other stuff you're looking at.
Is my screen still up? All right. So I think we discussed this somewhere. I don't remember if we did like a video last week because this was from last like Wednesday or Thursday. I posted this, but I posted this on Twitter. The last 3 times we saw the term market crash spike on Google Trends was March of 2020, June of 2022, and August of 2024. If you look here, those were the last 3 spikes. This was March of 2020, June of 2022 right here, and then August of last year. And the interesting thing is if you go to total 2 or total 3, those were the major bottoms all 3 times over the past few years. Like if you bought in March of 2020, or if you bought right here, this was June of 2022, or if you bought here in August of 2024, you literally are buying the best possible buying opportunities. And currently, the Google Trends, according to Google Trends, the term market crash has been spiking currently. So this is, I mean, if you trusted this over the last 5 years, this would be the equivalent of buying at these major bottoms, especially for altcoins. And it makes sense, right? That altcoins, when people think the market is going to crash and they think the stock market's going to crash, you're not going to want to hold the riskiest stuff. So it makes sense that when the market crash is people are searching for market crash, um, it also kind of coincides with altcoins finding their bottoms, because that's when people are trying to like, get out, or they need money, or they're very fearful. Um, the term recession as well reached its highest point since March of 2020 and June of 2022 as well, which were also major bottoms as well. So this was spiking as well. This is way above the August 2024 spike we had last summer. This went way above it. So we're seeing a lot of fear. We're seeing a lot of people search for recession, and it almost doesn't even make sense because if you listen to the FOMC meeting, they're expecting positive quarters of GDP through the end of the year, and the unemployment is fine by all metrics. Inflation is crashing, and I think this is where we cut off before. I'm not sure when it exactly cut off, but Trueflation shows that inflation's crashing. Trueflation front runs the CPI, or it's more updated than the CPI. But CPI, you look at CPI, basically the same exact thing here. This was, let me try to zoom in here to January. If you look, this was January. It was at 3%. You go to Trueflation. In January, it was at approximately 3%, and now inflation, according to Trueflation, is now below 2%. It went as low as approximately 1.43%, but it's currently at 1.79%. But my point is, by the time we get the inflation updates in both April and May, um, it's probably going to be either at 2% or even below 2%. I think, like my prediction probably would be that the May update, when we get the CPI May update, which will be, I think, like May 13th or something, which is a few days after the FOMC meeting in May. I think the May FOMC is like March or May 8th or something. We're going to find out that CPI has hit the Fed's target of 2% and maybe is even below it. So then by the June FOMC meeting, I would think they would officially end quantitative tightening. But I think, in my opinion, they saw this data. They see that CPI is crashing. They know they probably look at Trueflation, but they probably wait for CPI to come out. But I'm sure they expected inflation to basically crater over the next 2 months or so. So that's the reason probably why they tapered quantitative tightening by 80%. I think they know what's coming, and for them, they're usually the Federal Reserve over the past few years has been very, very reactive. So they wait for the problem to arise, and then they react to it. But it is interesting that this was like the first time, at least as long as I can remember, they're more proactive. They're getting ahead. They see that CPI is crashing. They want to get ahead of it before it continues to go down further. Because if it goes down into like the negatives or something like that, that leads to a lot of other issues that would potentially arise. Like if everything just continues to crash, the CPI continues to crash negative, it creates a whole different problem. So they don't want that. So they might, they're tapering the QT. They might have to look toward rate cuts down the line. But they jumped ahead. They wanted to get ahead of this. They saw that this is coming. So I think a lot of things are shaping up pretty well overall in the macro for Bitcoin, for the stock market and whatnot. And Bitcoin really at this point, it's just all eyes are on this resistance area at this point. This is pretty much all you can watch at this point. If we start closing weeklies back above in this resistance zone or above it, it's probably going to make a push to the highs once again. Maybe it finds resistance here and has to come back down one more time and then break out eventually. But for now, we have the weekly bullish divergence, first weekly bullish divergence since September. So I think this is shaping up. And we're seeing a lot of alts start to move too across the board. There's just a lot of alts that are moving. And I noticed that last week too, like after the FOMC meeting ended, some of them started to pop, just like random ones. But we hadn't seen that since January. The whole month of February, there wasn't like any coins. There might have been like some very obscure coins that started to move. But last week after the FOMC meeting, there were certain coins like ZRO, for example. This was one of them. It just like moved up a lot last week. Pretty much did like 100%. I think Zeta was another one. This moved up a lot. So we're starting to see coins pop. So that essentially means that people are kind of looking for more risk again. after not looking for risk at all since basically January. So I think people are kind of like settling in on the idea that maybe this has bottomed out, and I feel more comfortable buying these lower cap coins. I see opportunity there. So that was really the first sign, at least in my opinion, once when we saw that after the FOMC, and now we're seeing a lot of coins, it looks like across the board, just start to pop.
Yeah, Render made a big move today
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, Render made a higher high. I think in my Patreon video, I had discussed that, but I saw yesterday it was making a higher high above this area around 347. So it made sense. If you look at like the 4-hour time frame, it made that higher high and then made that pop. So yeah, a lot of coins across the board are showing that. And actually, I believe total too. Let me see if I can find this. This is everything but Bitcoin. So this is pretty much your altcoin market cap. This also made bullish divergence. Let me zoom in here. If you look here, the weekly close, this was a lower low on the RSI, higher low on the price. So the altcoin market as well has made bullish divergence. The interesting thing though is Ethereum didn't, but it can this week though. So Ethereum's RSI wasn't high enough. It was like right here, but now it's starting to spike. So Ethereum can make weekly bullish divergence this week. So, and Ethereum's basically at the same area that Bitcoin's at. It's basically right below major resistance. So for now, we essentially just have to wait and see what this market decides to do, whether it breaks upward or it finds a rejection here.
Yeah, absolutely. What are you looking at, Kev?
No, I was just looking at top gainers today, which I thought was interesting that there's a lot of, I guess you can call like real projects or like OG coins, it seems. Of course, there's a couple memes spread throughout, but a lot of the top gainers recently have been, the projects that people buy in with conviction for. And I think this is a really good thing to see for the market, that we're seeing projects that people have true conviction in. Like when people talk about like meme coins and they, talk about like buying memes and they sort of act confident. I mean, all they're doing is they're really just they're dumping pretty shortly after. Like the meme game is one thing, right? I mean, sometimes it's longer term, but what I mean is all the coins that people have a lot of conviction in that haven't really been moving, haven't really performed very well, are now starting to get all the volume, right? All the real projects are up today. And I think that this is going to cause a lot of confidence to be created. I think people are now being rewarded. The people that are holding, quote unquote, real crypto project are being rewarded.
Never heard of
that. I don't know what I'm hearing. You guys, is that?
No, sorry, that was my fault. I was getting things set up.
He was watching porn.
I'm going to be dumping everybody over to, I'm going to redirect over to Tom Crown when we're done. So I was getting that set up.
Oh,
no,
okay.
but I agree with you. I was having this conversation with TJ earlier, though, regarding Ethereum. It feels like there's, even on the government level with some of the things going on at the White House, a strategic Bitcoin reserve and the digital asset summit, the blockchain summit, as well as the NASDAQ in Sweden, particular coins that are being selected. It seems like ETH is being, in some ways, you see the World Liberty Finance stacking into it, but in other ways, in conversations and people that are being invited to these important meetings, ETH has kind of been a little bit left out of that conversation. Is there a realistic potential where, because of some of this knighting effect, meaning like, government agencies, government officials and institutions not really taking ETH, or is ETH going to be left out of this cycle potentially, or is ETH going to, have that resurgence of the bulls?
I think ETH needs a catalyst, and me and Kevin have discussed this. But if you watch what BlackRock is doing, I think BlackRock is kind of honing in on Ethereum. And I don't know if it's going to happen this cycle or next cycle or when. Maybe it takes a few years, but I think eventually they want to tokenize pretty much the whole bond and stock market. So if that were to ever happen, you're talking over $100 trillion worth of stocks and bonds being moved onto Ethereum. So if that were to ever happen, I mean, if Ethereum has $100 trillion worth of things or assets on it, it's extremely undervalued. And I don't know if it's going to happen. No one knows. I wouldn't be surprised if it does. They have done. I think they've been working with like Ondo They've been working. They have something called BitL, where they have like $100 million of stables. They have talked about tokenizing. Larry Fink has said that he wants to tokenize pretty much everything, but he hasn't specifically said like how they're going to do it or what chain. But there are signs, right? If they're using Ondo on Ethereum, and they have a project of BitL with stables on Ethereum, and Ethereum is the most secure layer one uh, smart contract chain. Like, you're not going to put the stock market on a Solana or something like that. That'd be complete insanity, just because it has too many failure points. It's too centralized. It's not, secure. But you want to put it on the most secure chain. So I don't know, like, if that's going to happen this cycle, but if they, if Ethereum's price ever starts to rise, and then eventually they announce that, yeah, they're putting pretty much everything on Ethereum. They're putting trillions of dollars worth of assets. Their plan is to move everything on Ethereum over the next decade or so. You're talking insane numbers, and that's just the U.S. stock market and bond market. If you include, let's say they decide they want to put all US dollars into stables on Ethereum, and then other countries' stock markets and everything else, it's massive, massive numbers, like 300, 400, 500 trillion dollars on Ethereum. Like, I don't know if it will end up happening, but
Even if it's
that's
just
like
a
the most bull
percentage,
case.
like just a small
Yeah.
percentage of that pie, that's all you need, really, right?
Yeah. And they wouldn't do it overnight too. They wouldn't, one day say, oh yeah, we're going to move the whole stock market. They would do it slowly. They would start to like move stuff, test the waters and stuff. But like that, under like that view, like that would be essentially Ethereum. The new financial system would be Ethereum, essentially, if that were to ever play out. And that's like the most extreme bull case, but it's definitely something. There's like hints at that, and you have to ask yourself too. Trump's number one coin holding is Ethereum, and if something like that were to play out, he would probably know. uh, I think he would know. Like, I'm sure his insiders and everyone would know that, down the road Ethereum is going to be like a massive, massive play or something, that everything's going to be built on Ethereum. And I think like it makes sense for BlackRock to kind of do that, because they don't control the financial system currently. Like, they don't own the stock market. They don't control or own the NASDAQ. They don't own the current financial systems. But if they can get ahead and build everything first, and then have everything onboarded onto it, then they would be like the kings of the new financial system, essentially. And I'm sure like that's in the back of their mind. That's probably what they want to eventually do. And I'm sure there's going to be competition. It probably won't just be them. I'm sure there will be competition, but I think they want to get ahead and be the first to do it. And
Well,
if
they
they
said
do it,
they've been testing it, right? BlackRock has been doing
mhm,
tests with Ethereum
yep,
for tokenization of stocks or real
yep,
estate. So, and they're also buying
yep.
Ethereum right now. So, I mean, I don't know. People saying like Ethereum's like dead. I'm like, I don't think so. I think it's going to have a pretty surprising recovery at some point. You know?
Well, you know
Someone
what it
said,
reminds me of? Like, I was just looking at this. This obviously is a different shape, but it kind of reminds me of summer last year, or before summer of last year, when we had that, on Bitcoin, for instance, coming back over here. It reminds me of this. It reminds me of this time period right here. When you look at that shape, kind of, we had the bottom, kind of some choppy, and then boom, boom. When you look at Ethereum, it's kind of similar, how you kind of had a kind of much uglier bottom, but then the move up, and then the boom, boom, same kind of thing. Are we kind of getting that potential local bottom that we start to work our way back up? And then, if we start getting really bullish integration news, this really could see, because the problem with ETH also, I think there's been a bit of ugly sentiment around it, because Bitcoin's ETF had so much positive flow in it. And when the ETH ETF came out, it was almost bearish, because it didn't have as much explosiveness in terms of buyers and the buy pressure and institutions and so on and so forth. But I think at that point, some of that liquidity was already exhausted in the market, and there wasn't really any new big catalyst. And we had the meme narrative with Solana and everything going on over there, that there was kind of a fractured sort of liquidity coming into ETH.
And
Whereas
there's
now, I think it still could have its resurgence.
I was going to say there's one big factor too to add into that is that Wall Street was longing Bitcoin and using Ethereum as their hedge. So Ethereum was their
Yeah.
hedge against their Bitcoin bets. So it was there was even further downside pressure on it for that reason. But I think that the opportunity shifts soon. Like the opportunity for Ethereum is really, really good down here if you are somebody that has conviction in Ethereum. I mean, this is like generational buy opportunity potentially if the cycle were to play out.
Oh, sorry, I hit the wrong button. Wait, did we lose? Oh no, you're still. Oh wait, where's the buttons? Are the wrong buttons? My bad. I lost you there for a second. My bad. You still there?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Can you,
Yeah. So no,
yeah.
I accidentally muted you. No, but it's just crazy because you look at this. I know there's a lot of lines on this chart, but this is the ETH to Bitcoin pair. And it's just crazy. This speaks to why the sentiment has been so weird because there's been 1,215 days essentially since this high here. This was technically a little bit lower high. So this has been in a downtrend on ETH to Bitcoin for, 1,215 days. What was that? That's almost 3 years, something like that. Just
Yeah.
downtrend on ETH. Just to get back to the previous all-time high would be a 73% gain. But the question is always going to be, is this going to do a new high against Bitcoin? I don't know. It's hard to say. Yes, there's a lot of things that can be integrated on it beyond just the speculative value. You're talking about real-world asset tokenization as amongst other things. But then there's also Ondo, then there's also Solana, then there's also Avalanche and L2s on Ethereum. And
If,
Base is a huge story right now as well.
if they
So I think
tokenize
it'd be
everything though,
interesting. What's that?
if they tokenized everything though, that would, I mean, you're talking massive numbers, like insane numbers. I don't even think Bitcoin can reach that fast. If that end up happening, like
Yeah,
let's
that took a
say,
long time though. It took, and also
yeah,
it probably wouldn't be entirely. It's not like they're going to just move everything to Ethereum. It's going to take. It would be like a slow, like pieces of it would come on, and like 10 years later, then you might see like, it would
yeah, it
just
would
take a
be
lot
a
of time.
slow. It would definitely take time, but like if they did do that, and it wouldn't be on other chains, like Solana, like I said earlier, or like BNB or something. There's just too much failure points, too centralized. You want it. You're going to do something like that. You got to do it on the most secure um, smart contract chain. That's Ethereum. So and there's the other chains. I think there's like a misunderstanding that they're all like in competition with each other. They're not competing with each other. Solana is going for speed over security. Ethereum's going for security over everything else. So if you want like memes flock to Solana because it was the fastest. But if you're BlackRock and you want like the most secure, you're not worried about speed. You want the most secure thing. You have to go to Ethereum. So yeah, it's just differences between the chains and whatnot, and the fees themselves. Like I'm sure they would actually probably make their own like maybe layer two chain on Ethereum. I'm sure like that's something they would end up doing. But the fees themselves, like those fees are like pennies for BlackRock. Like I don't, I mean, it's for retail, it would be high, but for BlackRock, it's still nothing. There's a lot of benefits too. If you just like ask ChatGPT, what are the benefits of tokenizing everything on Ethereum? It gives you like a whole list. It's like cheap. It makes it more cheaper. You can run things 24/7. There's all these different benefits of doing it. It's not like, oh yeah, we're just going to tokenize everything for fun. It's actual like there's money to be made, um, and a bunch of other things. So it makes sense that in time it will probably end up happening.
Yeah, it just speaks to we can be very excited about all these things, but at the same time, there's so much there's so much that still has to happen within this space and how things integrate and what agencies, what corporations, what large institutions, and what ultra high net worth individuals, all three of those things I think are going to determine a lot of factors over the next 3 years because it's we're in the process. The foundation isn't built. We're in process right now of building the foundation and what that foundation looks like for the future and how blockchain and these systems are going to be integrated. But it's exciting, man. I couldn't be more excited. It's happy. It feels good. It feels good to see all this green on the screen. It definitely does feel good. However, remember these things flip on a moment's notice, and especially considering where we're at in the market, looking at the total three, we still have a lot of work. Very bullish still, but it doesn't mean we can't have one more washout. I'm more on the bullish side of things right now, but I'm always prepared for bearish setups. But I know we're kind of coming up on the hour here. I appreciate having both of you here. It's been a minute. It's been what, 2 weeks, 3 weeks since we've had you both on, and I do want to shout out again, everybody. If you're not following Kevin, follow him here at Kevin Svensson _, and then of course follow Mr. Matthew Hyland at Matthew Hyland _. They both do content all day long, every day, as well as their Patreon and private community as well. They got some great things going on, so make sure you're following them. But I'll leave it to you guys. Matthew, give us a closing thought, and then I'll let Kevin wrap it out.
Well, we'll just wait for this weekly close for Bitcoin, and that's pretty much it. Just watch that area between 89K to 92K. So that's pretty much it.
Yeah,
I think a big tell or a big indicator recently has been sentiment, and I think sentiment in like the fear we saw likely is marking a bottom. Once people start to get optimistic on the next major bounce, I would say become a little bit cautious short term. It likely flips right back down. Most likely enter a little bit of accumulation in this range. Probably not going to be straight up or straight down. It's likely going to be a lot of chop, a lot of sideways. But I think sentiment right now is one of the best indicators because it's very clear what the sentiment is. So it's easier to analyze. People were coming out of this extreme fear zone, and it's very clear to analyze where the sentiment is going to go from here. So at this moment, sentiment is like one of my main indicators, which sometimes it's not as clear, the sentiment in the market, but right now it's very clear. And so, yeah, I think that's going to be my biggest sort of guide in the coming month or two.
I definitely agree with that. Everybody, I appreciate y'all being here. It's another Monday where we're actually seeing some green today, but let's not just get over conflated. Everything's bullish bull rocket. Everything is built one brick at a time, one pump at a time, but you always need to look for the retrace to see where the bulls are defending. And I pointed this out in the back with the Mario Nafal team. We were talking about markets this morning, and I said, listen, if we want to look for where the sell-off happens, at some point it's going to happen, whether it's now or in $5,000, it doesn't matter. We want to see where the bulls defend. If we have a higher low, great. If the market drops and we get a lower low from what we're seeing, even if it's just a touch, great. Is there bull divergence or not? Everything is a signal here. Price, everybody gets so locked in on just the price. Price doesn't freaking matter. Price only matters when you look at it in correlation with the relative strength index, what's going on with the sentiment, and where the outlook is looking like on broader markets as well in the coming days and weeks, because I do think it's setting up for an incredibly bullish time in the very near future. But I love you guys. Kevin, it's great to see you again. Matthew, it's great to see you again. Every single one of you out there, I appreciate you all for being here. That's all we got for today's show. I'm going to redirect you all over to Tom Crown. Tommy Boy is live right now. So go let him know the BitLab fam is there. Drop it in the comments. I'll be there too. But you guys, I appreciate being here, and we'll see you all in the next one. Adios.
See you next week.
Smash the like button.
Smash that like.